At what exact moment does a woman decide to leave a relationship? What triggers that decision? There's usually a clear cause and effect pattern, even if it isn't obvious at first. Many men who seek advice describe how their partner once loved them deeply and was affectionate, but something changed. That shift didn't happen randomly. Today, we're going to explore what often becomes the turning point in such relationships. Before diving into specific examples, many of which will sound familiar to you or reflect your past experiences, I want to emphasize one important point. If a man doesn't take a clear, confident stance in the relationship, then even minor events can start a downward spiral. Understanding this is critical. Let's begin with a seemingly harmless event, a change of job or a place of study. You might wonder, how could that affect a relationship? The answer's simple. A new environment brings a new social circle, possibly new interests. The woman's attention begins to shift. Where she used to share much of her time and focus with her partner, that time becomes limited. Her attention starts to go elsewhere, not necessarily in a romantic way, but enough to create distance. She may see you less often. She might seem less present. What typically happens next? New friends come into the picture. Female friends might not be a big deal, but male coworkers? That can become significant. Why? Because in a male-dominated workplace, there's emotional energy involved. A coworker shows her attention, even casually, and that can feel exciting to her. Her sense of self-worth increases, and she starts comparing. She might begin to wonder, is this what I've been missing? Now combine that with the fact that she's spending less time with you, and you're becoming emotionally distant. That alone can be enough to tip the scale. So yes, a simple change in job or school can influence everything. Next comes a classic scenario, conflict. One argument alone can set the stage for everything to fall apart. And it doesn't matter whether you are actually at fault. The truth is, a woman chooses her partner based on emotions, instincts, and internal signals, not logic. If you did something wrong and you apologize, or even if you didn't and still apologize, her subconscious doesn't register the difference. That's the key. Maybe you've always stood your ground, never made the first move in a disagreement, but then one time you tell yourself, maybe I was too harsh, I'll be the bigger person. So you go and try to make peace. Or perhaps from the start, you were dominant, even slightly dismissive of her feelings. She didn't like that, but she stayed. Still, she wanted more from you. Then one day she gets upset and distances herself, and suddenly you go running to make things right. That's when it clicks for her. Oh, so this is how I get results. And from there, the dynamic begins to shift. Subtly but surely, conflict matters. How it's handled matters. Even small arguments carry weight, especially when they change how power is perceived. Who made the first move to reconcile? Who apologized first? These details shape the direction of the relationship. Now let's talk about another powerful catalyst, interest in someone else. Yes, it can happen, but not without a reason. Maybe you were inattentive. Maybe you didn't show care or stopped making her feel valued. More likely, you stopped leading with strength. She wasn't getting the emotional connection she needed. Or simply put, maybe you weren't the right match. And just like that, she can shift her attention elsewhere, to someone new who brings excitement and fresh energy. That emotional triangle begins to form, and sadly, you're no longer the favorite. You've become the familiar, perhaps disappointing option, while the other man is new, exciting, and untainted by conflict or history. She's intrigued, and in that moment, your chances are slim. Why does she choose the other guy? Because he's something new. There's no baggage, no history of conflict or disappointment, just curiosity and fresh emotions. At the beginning, it all feels exciting. Meanwhile, she's already grown disillusioned with you. So if she has to choose between something predictable and something thrilling, she'll likely pick the latter. And often she'll say something like, I don't know, I'm just confused. I've said this many times. When a love triangle forms, the only smart move is to step away first. That's the only real power play in this situation. Let's also look at another common scenario. Suppose a man works a job that involves frequent travel, long trips, offshore work, or being at sea for months at a time. Can that lead to a woman falling out of love? Absolutely. Some men have this belief that even if they don't see their partner for months, nothing changes. Their feelings remain the same, so they assume hers will too. But women don't work like that. Here's what often happens. When you first leave, she sends tons of messages, emojis, sweet words, saying she misses you and feels lonely. But after a few weeks, maybe 2, 3, or 4, something shifts. The sadness fades. She begins to adjust. The emotional distance sets in. I'm not saying that every woman will leave if you're apart for a long time. Of course not. But the risk is real, and it's bigger than most men realize. I've heard countless stories during consultations that prove this. Now let's move on to another powerful turning point. Infidelity. When a man cheats and the truth comes out, things get complicated. He feels ashamed. She feels betrayed, angry, hurt. There's a storm of negative emotions. The man often thinks, yes, I messed up, but she still loves me. I just need to make it right. So he starts apologizing and trying to win her back, thinking he's doing the honorable thing. But let's pause here. I'm not talking about whether cheating is right or wrong on a moral level. That's not the point right now. The point is what happens psychologically in this situation. Even if your apologies are sincere, her instinct tells her something else, that she has the upper hand. The more you try to fix things, the more power she gains, emotionally and behaviorally. And for her, it becomes beneficial to keep you in that state. She has leverage. If she forgives you too quickly, you might go back to your old self, careless and distant. So instead, she holds on to that anger. She draws out the conflict. Eventually, if you follow the path of trying to be a better man, you may find yourself dumped anyway. She might say, I just can't forgive you. But often, that's not the real reason. The truth? Your value in her eyes already dropped, and your actions, ironically meant to win her back, only made it worse. There's another scenario that's worth mentioning. When a woman outgrows her man. What does that mean? It usually happens when a woman has strong ambitions and a deep need to look up to her partner. She wants him to be ahead, more successful, more driven, more established. She's attracted to that. But if at any point in the relationship their roles shift or even equalize, and he no longer seems above her, her attraction can fade fast. I've seen it countless times. It could be a woman who once had nothing, and her partner supported her, helped her grow. But now she's successful, thriving, building her own business, and maybe he's hit a slump. Suddenly the dynamic flips, and just like that, the admiration dies. She doesn't feel drawn to him anymore. It's not always fair, but it happens, especially when a woman has strong career goals. If she surpasses her partner in success or ambition, the relationship can break under the pressure. If at some point the roles reverse, or even just equalize, and your value in her eyes drops, things can go downhill fast. I've seen countless cases in consultations where the woman started out with nothing and the man provided everything: support, housing, resources. He was running a business, managing things, and she was just getting started. Then one day she says, I want to start my own business, and he helps her. They work together, but then the tables turn. Her business starts doing better while he hits a rough patch. Suddenly the balance is off. It happens. Sometimes because of ambition, sometimes because she becomes more successful, or he simply loses momentum. Either way, the shift can destroy the relationship. So here's the bottom line. If a woman has serious ambitions and she surpasses you, even emotionally or professionally, The odds of her walking away are high. I'd say around 95%. Now here's another common pattern. She goes back to her ex. It happens a lot, far more often than you'd think. She almost always returns to the guy who once dumped her, the one she was deeply attached to. Why? Because of unresolved emotional baggage. The pain she felt never truly healed. It doesn't matter if he left her years ago. Even after 3 years, if he reappears and calls her back, there's a good chance she'll go. And some men fall into this trap even earlier. She's fresh out of a breakup, maybe just 2 or 3 months. You meet her, you start dating, everything moves fast, but you're basically the rebound, and it's predictable how this plays out. I highly advise against it. Luckily, this is easy to detect early on. Just ask the right questions. When was your last relationship? If she says, "Oh, a few months ago," dig a little deeper. Who ended things? If she replies, "It was mutual," don't believe it. That's rarely true. Then subtly ask what kind of person he was. If she dodges or downplays it, odds are she was the one who got dumped. And that matters. You need to understand the emotional state she's in and what you're walking into. I've also noticed something many men confuse: the difference between mutual affection and strong position. They often think, well, she missed me, she chased after me, I must have been in a strong position. But that's not what a strong position truly is. So what is a strong position? Let me explain it simply. A strong position is when there are no ongoing conflicts. She's the one who makes peace first when issues arise. She avoids doing anything that might upset you. She cares for you, invests emotionally. You don't have any nagging doubts or suspicions about her behavior. In other words, things feel solid, transparent, and stable. That's what being in a strong position looks like. Of course, there are exceptions. For example, when a woman has emotional or behavioral issues, she might still act out even while being in a weaker position. But that's a separate case and not the general rule. One more thing. All those common explanations like, "You never proposed," "Our relationship wasn't progressing," "You didn't give me enough attention," those are rarely the real reasons for a breakup. Most men watching this already know that. The usual pattern is, you were distant, maybe inattentive, but things still felt fine. Then something happened. A shift, a turning point, and everything changed. After that shift, your perceived value dropped, and you tried to become a better man. You told yourself, "I was selfish before, but she deserves better. I'll be kind, caring, I'll change." And now ask yourself, did that actually help? It didn't, and it usually doesn't. Right now, you might be thinking, wow, relationships are so fragile. She can just leave at any moment. Is it even worth it? But let me tell you something. It's not as hopeless as it sounds. In the end, everything comes down to what you're looking for and how you view relationships. Relationships are powerful but fragile. The high divorce rate proves it. And men who base their decisions purely on emotions are almost guaranteed to run into trouble. These are the guys who say, "I just love her. I don't know why. I can't help it." If your only reason for being with someone is emotion, you're already in a weak position. You're dependent. You've given away your power, and you're wide open to making mistakes. Before you enter a relationship, ask yourself, do I really need one? And if the answer is yes, then why? Is it because you're bored? Because life feels too quiet or monotonous? Do you just want some emotional excitement? If that's your reason and you try to build a serious relationship from that unstable foundation, you're setting yourself up for pain. It's only a matter of time. On the other hand, if you're genuinely looking for something serious, then logic and common sense, not just emotions, need to guide you. If you think clearly, you're much less likely to end up in a mess. Maybe not invincible, but far more prepared. If you're craving adventure and emotional highs, that's fine. But don't try to turn that rush into a stable long-term relationship. You can't build a family on thrill-seeking. Doing so will only lead to regret. That mistake usually comes from inexperience, immaturity, or emotional weakness. Falling head over heels and making reckless choices doesn't take effort. All you need to do is go with the flow, and the problems will find you. But to pause, take control of your emotions, and use your head. Now that takes strength, and it's not easy. Here's what's crazy. Most men know nothing about real relationships until they're already in crisis. It doesn't matter if you're a scientist, a highly intelligent person, or someone whose job involves high-risk decision-making, you can still fall into the same emotional traps. Why? Because you've never actually learned how relationships work. Things in a relationship often feel random. One day she loves you, the next she doesn't. You're left wondering why. But there's always a reason. You just don't see it clearly until it's too late. Now, my regular viewers probably already understand all this, but I'm saying it for those who are hearing it for the first time. Maybe someone who's just stumbled onto the channel. One key difference between men and women is this. Women live through emotion. Men, on the other hand, usually rely on strategy and planning, at least in areas like business or personal goals. But when it comes to relationships, even smart men start acting emotionally, and that's where the real problems begin. If you want to avoid disaster, you must apply that same strategic thinking to your love life. You should always be able to look one step ahead. That mindset is critical.